you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Snap Bingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College, Dhakaba Road. GMS Snap Bingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.
So every result has a story, and we are here to bring you the stories behind the results. My name is Mebel Kebirungi, welcoming you to Second Take with IDK, and we are here at Molecule Restaurant on Impala Avenue in Kololo in Kampala. Good morning, should I say, Isma?
Depending on the time when you get a chance to watch this, could be good morning, could be good afternoon, could be good evening, could be your lullaby to bed. What better way to send yourself to sleep than with some sports opinions?
Yes, and I must say it's a great place, and this is an important week. We are here at Molecule, and I can see they are already ready for Valentine's, which is happening this week. Isma, I don't know, it could be part of sport, but yeah, what are your plans other than watching some games?
I see a lot of hearts everywhere in the place, and having been to a school where we had this thing celebrated on a daily in the school chapel, I knew a thing or two about these things, but no, and zero Valentine's plans. Hope to be alive on the day, and yeah, and hope the people around me celebrate me. They need to love me a bit more because I'm doing my best.
You are indeed, and I must say thank you for all the love you have shown us online. It's just been 2 weeks, but there's been a lot of love. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please do like and share these videos for lots and lots of bold opinions and analysis, you know.
Sure.
So something, I don't know, I know I've known you to be a bit loyal, but something that did come up in the news, Isma, is this gentleman going on strike, earning as much as he does, Cristiano Ronaldo. I've known you to be loyal, but would you go on strike and challenge management like that? We're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo now.
I think such an incident depends a bit on the culture. In our culture, and I mean Ugandan culture, we are raised to be very meek.
Yeah.
We are very, very scared about challenging authority. Many a time, even when you don't agree with something in the workplace, you're bound not to challenge it in the moment. You're going to let it pass. And that's more likely to happen with me, like it would with very other Ugandan. But I also appreciate people who are empowered to a certain extent, because the issues that have been raised or speculated about that Cristiano Ronaldo does not like about Al Nassr are issues to do with some decision taken by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, where he thinks that other clubs are favored, favored over the others, especially Al Hilal. Al Hilal, which is the biggest club in Saudi Arabia, their rival, who have won the most titles, who have won the Asia Champions League, I think, on 4 occasions, and he thinks they are supported a lot more than Al Nassr. I think it's also, if Ronaldo went longer with the strike, it would help us understand the structure model and funding of these clubs, because there's been a question about how all these clubs, I think there's 4 of them, including the ones that won the Asia Champions League last season, should be Al Ahly Saudi, the club that has Ivan Toney and Roberto Firmino, who won the Champions League last season. How can 4 clubs be owned by the government, which the Saudi Public Investment Fund is, and then the others have to toil for themselves, almost largely toil for themselves? So I think it would help us understand the funding model. And sometimes I have a thing or two for players or sportsmen and women who wear their emotions. Because sometimes the expectations we have of these professional athletes is for them to suck on their emotions and never reveal their real opinions about things, because the standards for them have been set so high, and for many of them, they are supposed to be examples and idols for so many of the people in our society, for billions, and they are followed by billions of people. So normally, we expect them to be perfect. But sometimes when a player comes out and wears the emotions, I'm very glad they do, because then it shows the human side of them, that they are also affected sometimes we think they are immortals, they are perfect, and those
yeah.
kind of things. So when Ronaldo comes out to speak, and he didn't even give specifics of how they are favored, though I saw a statement for the Saudi Public Investment Fund saying that no individual is bigger than the league.
Yeah.
But when you're being paid 177 million pounds a year to play in a league that does not have the pull, the global appeal that, for example, the Premier League does, because in terms of television, because they're definitely not making that money back. Ticket sales wouldn't. The sponsorship they have in the Saudi League would not. Even if you put Aramco, which is the biggest oil and gas company in the world, and put all these companies together, the Saudi League is not making that money back. But it's very important that they are promoting and opening up their country to a different type of investment,
Yeah.
because they've only been known for oil and gas. Now
Yeah.
they are saying, according to that Vision 2030 that was launched by the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, they're trying to change the model of what people know Saudi for. That's why, for example, you find a team like Newcastle have a sponsor in Sela, who is the tourism authority, the equivalent of UTB in Uganda,
Yeah.
as their sponsors, try and enable Saudi open up and stop that dependence on oil, which we are about to start as a country. I don't know whether we'll be as dependent as they've been for all this time. So the money is not, it's a public relations stunt when you're paying someone 177 million pounds, and in the end, they kick you in the mouth, because that's what Ronaldo has exactly done. But sometimes maybe people deserve that kick in the mouth to do better.
Okay. Well, let's move from that league to one of the most expensive leagues, the English Premier League. And we will start with the game on Sunday that has everyone talking about the referee. Everyone has an opinion. Two wrongs don't make a right. But somehow I was reminded of the, the Senegal-Morocco situation, because sometimes some things feel right, but according to football, they're wrong. So explain it to us.
What exactly?
Liverpool and the fouls, the two fouls, because Szoboszlai was fouled as well as Erling Haaland, and they were both punished, I guess, for that. The goal was disallowed, and he got a red card. The other got a red card. So, but there's been a lot of debate online about the decision that was made.
I would. These days, football has become a lot logical because of technology. I would have loved, first of all, a situation where the goal counts, because Ryan Cherki, who scored the goal, was not even involved. He's shooting from his own half because Liverpool had committed everyone forward. And in that situation, it's only just that when you're trailing 2-1, you throw everybody forward, and no one will be blaming Alisson Becker for having been out of position, because in that position you want to help your team get an equalizer. And we know he's one of the goalkeepers who scored previously. He scored a goal against West Bromwich Albion to get Liverpool into the top 4 a few years ago. So there is no issue with that. I would love for me that the goal would have counted. That's a logical thing. However, in this era of VAR, there are 4 incidents that will always be reviewed. One of them is every goal. Whether you shoot from your own half or wherever, every goal is subject to a VAR review, a video assistant referee review. The other is an offside. Whenever the referee, the linesman, the assistant referee raises a flag, and there is a doubt about whether offside or not, that will be reviewed. The third incident is mistaken identity. Should the referee issue a card, a yellow, red, but then they've confused shot 15 for shot 25, the VR is allowed to whisper in the referee's ear and tell them, please, you've issued to the wrong person. The fourth incident is serious foul play. When you go out and tackle, like we saw the Tottenham Hotspur captain, Christian Romero, those are the 4 incidents. So first of all, yes, they are right to review the incident, because this is one of the 4 incidents that will be reviewed. And every league has its parameters, what is reviewable and what isn't.
Yeah.
But then, the advice of the VR is not final. Because the decision, what FIFA have tried to create is that they do not want the game to be refereed twice. That a referee makes a decision, and then someone seated in a room which overturns it, because Mourinho once claimed that the VR is already seated in a room taking tea, and then they have to make a decision. So the referee could have, if I was Craig Pawson, and I would prefer that situation, is that he could have said, "I'll not take. I understand your advice, but I'll not take it because of a goal." But then, eventually, the rules are clear. Soboslai is fouling the last man in that situation, who could actually get to the ball and score and tap it in. So that is a red card incident. Then Haaland is fouling back. In that situation, I would always love to go with the first offense. Yeah,
He wasn't defending himself. You couldn't
yeah,
look at it that way.
something. Okay, the game does not allow retaliation. If you retaliate, you're going to get sent off. So I did not like the finish, because in the end, this is a very good game of football eventually, that has been reduced to an incident that the referee could have avoided. When I started out in the newsroom, my supervisor, Mark Namanya, told me that when you have to write a story about a match report and include the name of the referee, that means the referee was bad. So maybe people don't even know who Craig Pawson was. Now they remember him for that incident, the referee who disallowed what would have been a legitimate goal. So in that case, I still think maybe not. Secondly, there's a thing they talk about, consistency, and I'm not one of those who thinks referees will ever be consistent, because the situations are different, the referees are different, because people demand a lot of consistency. The penalty that was awarded to Man City to go 2-1 up, there are people who are claiming it should not have been, because there's several incidents, and I've seen videos online of a penalty that was not given to the Arsenal, and I've seen a few others for teams that I cannot relate, where clearly Alisson doesn't get to the ball, but is making no attempt to foul Matheus Nunes, the Man City right back, who gets in that situation. So that, for me, should depend on the referee's discretion, because you've got to give the referee the benefit of the doubt. The challenge we have today is that because everyone is waiting for VR, and the moment an incident happens, we are all waiting for the replay.
Yeah.
We are thinking the game is going to be refereed twice. But that's not for me the case. In a situation, what for me, I always call 50-50 decisions. And I've seen fans who see them as 50-50 if they go for their team only. I'd love a situation that if the referee gives it, then he's right. If he doesn't give it, then he's right too. Because there isn't a day when the same situation will be judged the same way. Because Alisson goes to the ground and is lying down, and Nunes goes into him. But he's also impeding the path of Nunes. So where should Nunes go? So in the end, I'm neither here nor there on that incident. If the referee gives it, well and good, it's a penalty. If he doesn't, then the game should go on. However, then you move to the press conference. You cite two incidents, and Arne Slot thinks the referee was unfair on his team on multiple occasions. First of all, he thinks he should have had a penalty. Second, he thinks Maguire should have been sent off. Or for an incident that when the replay comes in, yes, there is Ruben Diaz, but Ruben Diaz is not behind Guehi when Guehi is fouling, I think, Mohamed Salah. Yeah? And pick Mohamed Salah in that situation, 9 out of 10 times, is going to get the goal, is going to score. So it's not a situation where Guehi is standing here and Ruben Diaz, who had just come on as a substitute for Alexander Kusanov, is standing right behind. It's just that he's beside. But if Salah beats Guehi, then he's thrown goal. So in that incident, I think Arne Slot is right in terms of what he thinks and feels should have been the right decision for in Liverpool's case. Maybe it's a totally different game. But in football, you have pluses and minuses. People will always say at the end of the season, you win some, lose some, and some people will say at the end of the season, all decisions will have evened out.
Yes.
Maybe they don't. A team could get relegated because of a referee's bad decision. Now, in that situation, Liverpool could actually miss out on the top 4 because Craig Pawson was not very good on the day. So when you're saying the decision evens out, it could be the difference between finishing in a Champions League place and finishing 6th. And those are totally different scenarios. So it never evens out during the season. I used to believe it that way, that it evens out, but over time I got to learn that no, it doesn't. It may not. A team could get relegated, or the difference between earning £10 million and 9 or 7 could be just that one decision. And I think Liverpool are right to be aggrieved, but they are not the
But
kind.
don't you think, yes, they might be aggrieved, but don't you think that it showed more gaps, that they've been slowing down, you know, gradually, their midfield, their defense?
Yeah, it hasn't been a great season for Liverpool.
No, it hasn't.
And by every shade of imagination, whatever parameter you use to measure how successful Liverpool have been this season. And this game is one they almost felt they could get away with because they were
Scored
very
fast.
Yeah, they scored fast. They were very poor in the first half. They scored the kind of goal from Dominic Soboslai that can win any football game anywhere in the world.
Amazing.
Yeah, an amazing strike. It is actually a reminder of the peak days of free kick takers like Juninho Pernambucano, because football has run out of excellent free kick takers. We don't see as many because there was an era where if you watch David Beckham this week, then you're likely to see Figo the next. And in midweek, you're supposed to see Juninho Pernambucano also score that kind of free kick. Then there was also Sinisa Mihailovic, the late former Inter Milan who played in Italy and also coached in Italy before passing on. I think at the time he passed on was playing for Bologna. There was that era where there were so many mercurial free kick takers. Now you struggle to find any. Now Soboslai goes and scores such a banger. I think it's his fourth free kick this season. He scored another against Arsenal. The others haven't been in the Premier League. But even thereafter, you do not think Liverpool had done enough.
Yeah.
You felt 70 minutes, 74 minutes, there's still a lot of time to play. And then they have to defend much better than they have for the entire season. But even after they concede the equalizer to Bernardo Silva, in the 84th, you think they still have enough to hold on to that. But, like has been the theme for Liverpool's season, there's a time at the start of the year at the start of the season when they were scoring when they were scoring late goals to win games. Now they are conceding them in an avalanche because now that was the fourth time.
Yeah.
They've conceded in injury time to lose a game, but also they've conceded twice in injury time to draw games and drop points. So this game is a symptom of so many things that have gone wrong with the club. The defensive organization is lacking. The amount of space between the backline and Gravenberch sometimes can be shocking because the ball gets easily to Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahim Konate, which wasn't the case a lot of last season because they were built on organization. Then, sometimes because now the coach, Ancelotti, has chosen to play the four at the front, Cody Gakpo, Mohamed Salah, Hugo Ekitike, and Florian Wirtz, is that they are not going to offer a lot of tracking back. Actually, of the four, I think Gakpo tracks back the most. So you're going to be short of numbers most of the time when you're defending. And like you mentioned, there are going to be situations where they're not going to have numbers behind the ball, and they have paid the price for that.
Yeah.
So the result in itself shows exactly what Liverpool's season has been. And in this case, you cannot even choose a moment and claim it's going to get better. You know, sometimes it's going to get better. It's just something we say because we want someone to make them feel good. There aren't concrete signs where you said that they'll get better. Because now they are playing without right backs. Yeah, both of them are out injured. Conor Bradley and Frimpong. You play Dominic Soboslai there, then he's sent off. So you have to find another one. Yeah.
So a top four finish is unlikely.
Very unlikely. If they did, that would be a miracle. I would actually say, for second take, they will not be in the top four.
Okay, let's look at others. Manchester United and Aston Villa. Last week you did say Aston Villa, you know, they're just there like a filler of sorts. You don't really give them much. But let's talk about Manchester United. 4-4 now. What is Carrick doing right?
A lot of the basics. I think for me it has been about the basics. Put the players in the right positions, get back the confidence, get back everyone back on side. The only person maybe who is not on side is Roy Keane when he sits in studio and claims so many things about that he thinks Michael Carrick is not the right man for the job. There's some of us who have thought previous, even when he was coaching at Middlesbrough, that should be given a shot at the Manchester United job. Regardless, and by then I didn't even have the luxury of seeing him win 4 games in a row. And he has had an interim spell in charge before where he coached a game and I think they drew it with Chelsea 1-1 in the past. I think for me it's about doing the basics right. However, in their previous game against Tottenham, largely helped by how poor Tottenham were. And Tottenham had this very good run against United.
Yeah.
United had not beaten Tottenham, I think, since 2022, including a double last season. They beat United, I think, 4 times in a season last term, including winning the Europa League in the end, that final. That was very disappointing in terms of what United offered on the day. But in the end, he's brought back that feel-good factor. And for me, it's very important. You could see it in the confidence. For example, for Brian Mbeumo, the goal that he scored to put United ahead. Very important in that situation when they did. And then eventually, that had come after the red card because Spurs had to play for 60 minutes without Cristiano Romero, who is extremely reckless for me. Has the right attitude for the game, has immense amount of belief in his abilities, and has been critical. Even for things he lacks in ability, he makes up with the kind of attitude he comes into games. But then he's getting sent off too often, and that cannot be a very good sign for a professional footballer. But in the end, you've got to say, Michael Carrick, the basics are right. I think after the season is done, especially if he gets Manchester United back in the Champions League, by the time he does that, the conversation about whether he should be given the job permanently are going to grow louder. And in the end, the choir will be singing in one hymn. Everyone will be saying he's got to get the job. Of course, the transition then will start. Then he has to get in his right players. Their players maybe doesn't think will do the right thing. He's made players that many had written off appear better than they actually are. Luke Shaw, Diogo Dalot. There's players in that team that people might have thought were not going to have a future at United. And of course, the ability to revive Kobe Maino. I think that's for me the trump card for him.
Okay. Just to take you back, and indeed for second take, maybe he has found favor, because I'm wondering, someone like Ruud van Nistelrooy wasn't given the same opportunity. He did win a couple of games, and then before we know it, they are bringing in someone else.
The Baganda say, omukisa gwechite guyisa mbuzi malalo. When you see someone who is lucky, it doesn't mean that another will be, because regardless of what we think about coaching and sport and organization, in the end, you're going to need a bit of luck. And when Ruud van Nistelrooy came in, maybe there are things that the people who manage a club did not agree with what he was going to be able to do. Because I think it was the last manager before Ruben Amorim took the job, after Eric Ten Hag. Yeah. And he spoke a lot about wanting to have the job permanently, which Michael Carrick has avoided, every time. But doesn't imply sometimes you've got to, as an institution, as a club, they must have been looking at a manager who is young and has won something. I think that's what guides them to get Ruben Amorim. So when the experiment of Amorim fails, then they retreat to thinking United DNA, that overstated word that sometimes I don't really understand what it actually means besides winning. So you're not going to be as lucky as another. Sometimes you're not going to end up in the jobs you deserve. In the end, you just have to show up on the day and serve. Sometimes they call it service, and do what you can in that situation. And then thereafter, you hope you get the opportunity. But Carrick has been luckier to get as many as 4 games. And he's 1-4, and he's going to get many more because there's 13 to go. And it's very unlikely they'll change manager again until the end of the season. He's going to be the man in charge, and whatever happens thereafter, May gets a 3-year contract and stays longer.
Okay, let's move on to the Uganda Premier League now as we begin the second half. What tactical shifts do you think need to be made, and by which teams?
I think one of the most unfortunate things that has happened in the Uganda Premier League this season is that on every forum I've watched and read and listened, that there's football being played on the pitch, but the entry point still remains that Kitara Vipers game. And I have wishes that I would love to see. There are things I'd love to see, and I wrote some of them down while coming to this show. Is that one of the things I'd love to see is for FIFA to make a decision.
Yeah.
Last week, I saw the FIFA president on NBS, and he stated that they've sent the case to the judicial bodies to make a decision, I know the judicial bodies report to him. I've attended a review of the judicial bodies before. They had a meeting somewhere in Mutundwe, and I was invited to listen to the process they go through, to make decisions, to sanction players, to choose whether it's a fine, because at the time there was an accusation that, for example, the conflict resolution chamber, especially for matches and coaches, was only making money. So, while Moses Magogo, the former president, says it's about the judicial bodies making a decision, they should always be guided by how critical and how quick a decision should be made, because no one is benefiting from this situation. Vipers cannot be happy, Kitaraman cannot be happy, none of the clubs in the league will be happy about that, because you need to help us decide very quickly so that you allow everyone move on.
To move on, yeah.
Yeah? You do not want to get to a situation where there's a league title to be won and then you make a decision that affects the race for the title significantly. So for me, that's a first wish on the table, that I would love to see a situation where this is decided entirely and everyone has to move on. Secondly, has got to be about the number of goals. The other week, we're talking about how Vipers have changed. They sell Okello, and all of a sudden, in the next 3 games after Okello has moved to Yanga, they score 4, they score 3, they score 4. They score 11 goals in 3 games. Now, so often you go to stadiums in Uganda, and teams have literally set out not to lose. If they walk out and the game has ended 0-0, everyone is pleased. Both sides are pleased and the ref is pleased. That is not hard to make a decision that hurts any of the teams. Then there are situations where once a team takes a lead, that is it. They are done. And games end 1-0, and 1-0 games are not the most entertaining unless it's a decide of something. Now, let me just attach numbers to that, because someone may not even understand it very well. The top scorer in the league, and we are talking about 14 games, is Vipers. They've scored 32 and conceded 7. That means they are averaging a little over 2 goals a game, which is about 2.1 or 2.2 goals a game. The next scorer in the league, Police, have scored 26 in 15. That means they are scoring less than 2 goals in a game. Then when you move on, the next one is SC Villa. They've scored 24 goals in 15 games. That's also an average of 1 point something
Yeah, per game.
a game. And rules in football have been designed, one, to favor attacking teams and punish defending. That's why almost every decision made in football is about stopping a player from getting to this, getting to that. So I would love, my other wish is that coaches open up a bit more and try to play attacking football. To the extent that, just to emphasize how goals have not been as many, take an example of Entebbe UPPC. The team that lies second in the league, they've scored 30 in, they've scored 17. Yeah, they've scored 17. Okay, they have 30 points and are 6 points behind Vipers, who have 36. They've scored only 17 goals in 15 games. Everyone has given them a bit of credit for the defensive grit that they've shown. Rogers Omedwa in goal is gone 6 games in a row away from home without conceding. But all of us have known Abdallah Mubiru for being an attack-minded coach. Yes, he hasn't won much with that. But many people have been skewed towards his style. And everyone is talking about how now he has people who are helping him with the defense, including Livingston Imbaba as one of his assistants. And they are not conceding as many, but that has taken a lot of wind out of their sails. And I remember watching them against KCC after they scored the goal. They were clearly intent on not trying to concede an equalizer. And sometimes that is not a very good thing for football when the goals are very few. Because eventually when UPL do their statistical report at the end of the season, they show us, and the number of goals maybe will be an average of under 1.7. And that's not a very good sign.
Yeah.
Very low. So an increase in the number of goals would be very good service to the league. Thirdly, I really hope there is a title race. In the last 3 to 4 years, we've had title races that have gone down to the wire. And that's one of the reasons why people were saying that the format that was introduced by Moses Magogo is not what Ugandan football needed to improve. Because we've seen Villa end their title drought after 20 years, winning the league on the final day. Yeah, in that case, when they beat NEC, eventually won the league. We've seen situations where Vipers have won the league on the final day and also saw a helicopter hover around Kampala, the grey one that eventually
waiting to land
in one of the locations where there was a title to be decided.
Yeah.
And actually that day, KCC had a chance of winning the title. Villa had a chance of winning when they drew with URA at Wankuruku on the final day by 1-1 that game. Actually, Villa lost on that day. Najib Faisal scored the goal for URA as Villa lost the league title. Of course, they came back and won the following season to end their 20-year wait. I'd really hope for a title race because the signs are very ominous in terms of where Vipers can go. They are 6 points clear after the first round and with a game in hand. Then you have teams that have proved that they are equal. UPPC with 30, KCC with 30, Villa with 30, then Kitara with 29 and Police with 28. The top 6 teams. I really hope for a situation where some of these teams are able to get a result in the second round against Vipers. One of them has got to be Bull. When Vipers have to go to Ginger and play Bull, and Bull can be a very tricky customer, especially when they are playing at home. The other is that AC Villa have an opportunity when they host Vipers at Kadiba in the second round. That could be a very critical game in terms of where the title race could end up. Then KCC, for all they lack, for their inadequacy, and people have been debating how KCC have come from the high of a team that wins and competes for league titles, you really hope that they go to Chitende and get a result. That's if you're neutral. And I'm not saying this because I do not want Vipers to win, because eventually if they end up winning on the second or final of the season, football here will be served better than situation where they are very dominant and no one can catch them. Like we saw in that zone where Cesar Manzoki was by far the best player in the league. Or there have been situations where Vipers have run out with the league title. A situation where there is a title race, I'm all for it as the second round resumes. Finally, how far will Entebbe Uganda Printing and Publishing Corporation go? They've been very, very excited about that result against KCCA to finish the first round, and that got many people around the club very pleased. There's actually a lady, I think she's called Alice Naziwa. She must be working in the managing director's office at UPPC. She called me because she was very excited. Yeah, first of all, she wanted me to write about what UPPC have been doing, which is what we do on a daily basis, yeah, with my daytime job as head of sport at Nation Media Group. This is what we do on every single day. We write about these things, we talk about them on all our forums. So there's been that kind of excitement. However, like we've seen with so many of the institutional clubs in the past, and this is not even picking on UPPC, it's even happened with some so-called community clubs, yet in the true sense there is no community club in Uganda that's registered as so. Clubs like Kondo Paraka, is that some of this excitement is there when they are winning. We saw when Kitara first came into the league. Is the management at UPPC willing to support the institution, the club, to be able to sustain this over a longer period of time? I would love to see them compete right at the very end. They are doing certain things right. I've seen they've ensured that the people around Entebbe Bugonga are really involved. They have jerseys that you move around and see some people wearing those jerseys with UPPC on them. You really hope it's not a flash in the pan. Because for some of us who have lived around Ugandan football long enough, some of these things, while we might get excited, sometimes they are not very new. We've seen them before. We've seen clubs come and when they are winning and everyone wants the clubs to do very well, then after some time, if they lose a few games, then everyone starts to lose interest. And before you know it, the club itself has closed. So
yeah, the
I would love this.
West Nile is very sad.
Yeah, so you need.
Hill and Paraka.
So I personally need UPPC to be competitive so that the excitement that I've seen that they've shared actually goes on much longer. And maybe finally, there's a relegation battle. in that relegation battle, I can confirm for the benefit of our viewers that Calvary will be relegated because they've only collected 4 points in 15 first round games. It's not going to change. And they were beaten actually in the Uganda Cup by a team that started as a WhatsApp group, a team called the Football Classroom. I was part of the group and left because the noise sometimes would get to me. So
I'm also on that group, strangely
yes,
enough.
strangely.
I'm in
Yeah.
Kamoli.
Yeah, so they were beaten. I think they are not good enough. They've struggled in that sense. And maybe the institution that supports them in Yumbe, because it's a team that was started by the church to help the youth of the community stay away from all these ills of sexual crime and all these kind of things to do with drugs, to keep them busy. The kind of projects that are very heartwarming for communities across the country. I think they'll be relegated. They were not ready for this. Then thereafter, you have teams that in a situation that all of them can go down, all of them can stay. UPDF have 11, Mbara City have 12, Buhimba United Saints have 13. Buhimba have been in a bit of trouble. There are 4 players who are suspended for match fixing. And you look at some of the videos of the goals that they've conceded, you sense the players were not trying hard enough. They weren't fixing the games, or not trying hard enough. Then you have URA.
Is that the club that where they don't pay their players?
Yeah, but that's not the only one that doesn't pay. That's a common place in Ugandan football. Some of it is down to the lack of resources. Then you have URA who have 13. You have Lugazu who have 13.
You are with Mbalangu.
Yeah, with Hussein in Mbalangu. For now, I'll excuse Lugazi. Maybe we'll get to them in one of our subsequent shows if they are former mates and then they're in this situation. So there's going to be quite a relegation battle. And the other day I saw Hussein in Mbalangu, the URA coach, saying that they're actually in a real relegation battle. We're talking about 4-time champions, but they've gone 7 games without scoring a goal to finish the first round. Now, if you do not score in 7 goals in 7 games anywhere in the world, you're a relegation candidate. And they've won only 2 games this season. And while I was speaking about teams that do not score and not many teams score in this league, is that they've scored only 13 goals in 15 league games. So their average is about 0.8 something. So there's got to be a major improvement. But all these teams, the battle is real. And talk about teams that are not paying, you talk about Buhimba, but Mbara City are even in bigger trouble.
Yeah.
Despite having someone you'd call the money bags, because Honorable Mwine Mpaka, who is someone I've met on multiple occasions, I even know the family quite well. And his roots do not only stop on the street, they go up to plot 1 in Tebe. So he's heavily connected with where the power and authority in this country lies. But somehow, the club is not benefiting as much now like they used to. However, sometimes with these clubs that are run by politicians, I tend to understand. I can imagine during this first round and the latter part of the first round, is that Honorable Mwine Mpaka has been in the midst of a parliamentary election. So all the resources have been there. Now maybe now that it's done, now it's going to get back to the football. And that is a challenge of playing for some of these clubs that are run by politicians, that they are interested for as long as it's going to get them a vote. And I can imagine when Mbara City first came into the league a few years ago, they were very competitive at some point. Then they slacken a bit. They've been oscillating between either relegation candidate, a mid-table team, or top 7 team. That's what has got to change. Now I think it's done with the election, so maybe the players should receive a 350,000, a 500 on their accounts, and then the performance will go up. Because the difference sometimes in Ghana football between the clubs at the top and those fighting relegation is motivation.
No, okay. Now, we have to move to rugby, and I'm just wondering, is it the same, similar situation, or rather, is it the opposite there for the title race? Do you think it's going to be closer than it is in football?
I read in the rugby, I really hope it's going to be closer. First of all, rugby have a very unique format, how they play their league. They have 12 teams in the top tier for the men, and they play 11 games and get placement. Then after the placement, the bottom 4 drop off and play some kind of playoff for relegation. Then the top 8 proceed and play quarterfinals, semifinals, and then finals. So the results you pick now may decide how you're seeded. And it helps if you're seeded number 1, because then you get to play quarterfinal against the 8th strongest team in the league, or, and that is being very good with language, or you play the weakest team in the playoffs. So it helps for all the teams to be at the top. Now, at the start, you're hoping that your players show up and they're in the best shape to compete. So sometimes it's very difficult for your first game if you're Pirates, if you're Cobs, you're Heathens, the three who think have designs on winning the league to be playing against each other. In the past, it was very easy because all you needed to do to win the league is that if you're Cobs, you beat Heathens, you're bound to be champions. You're Heathens, you beat Cobs, you're bound to be champions. And the same with Pirates when they started winning the league and challenging the top two. Now, because of a change in format, it may not help where you finish. However, if you're going to use your squad very well, you need to finish as seed one, then you can rotate players in subsequent game. So for the first week of the season, I think all eyes were obvious on one place because Kings Park had the blockbuster, the game between Pirates and Pirates and Cobs, sorry. And the start was a bit of a sickener because Pirates were playing on a different pedestal from what Cobs were able to offer. And at halftime it's 21-7, and then you're thinking, who do I love to meet on a Saturday? You want to leave. And the game was being played at the same time as Manchester United against Tottenham. People maybe have that option. Then eventually, Cobs launched a steering comeback in the second half and eventually lose by just the 2 points because the final score was 26-24. That could go a long way in deciding where the teams eventually finish. Yeah? Because if Paris didn't get a result against Heathens, then it's already a big trouble for them. Then Cobs will know they cannot finish the top two. However, Cobs already show up for the Pirates game. Even last season, they're able to beat Pirates. And there's a good feeling around the club. I mentioned the other week about the negativity around the fans and some people involved with the club around Dr. Tony Stone Luja when he was chairman of the club. Now that he stepped away, everyone seems to want to pull in the same direction. And from what we saw on Saturday, the team seems to have got back in a situation where they'll be very competitive. For example, just one minor tweak. Joseph Aredo, one of the most experienced players on this side, and one I've watched for a large part of the past 14 years, because I remember I saw him in his one of his first big games against Heathens. Moves from inside center to fly half, and the team is playing much better, and everyone thinks that's a masterstroke. So there's a sense that everyone is going to be pulling the same direction for Cobs. And if that happens, the results are going to be very different for them. Then they'll be competing right at the top, but eventually you may have to beat Heathens and Pirates, one in the semi and the other in the final, to win the league.
So no chance Warriors, of course, Makerimpi is lost. I thought they would come back with a bang, but no chance for...
In the last few years, we've had one of the teams that was an outsider, Hippos. They played very well, got to a final against Pirates.
Yeah.
But they lost that final because they did not have depth. In the end, the game was decided by depth. When Pirates brought their big guns off the bench, there wasn't enough that Hippos could add to their roster to compete. And now they've become a little weaker. There's been a bit of a struggle. Some players have left, joined Buffaloes. I know, for example, Yasin Wasa is one of those who made his debut after leaving Hippos. I do not think now we have a team outside of the top three that is going to be able to compete. Heathens, for example, got very good money from Platinum Credit. You have Pirates who have had a consistent sponsorship from Stanbic Bank and all this support and having their own venue where they can generate money from the entertainment around Kings Park. You have Cobs at least who have the sponsorship from KCB. And the other clubs do not have as much. Okay, Buffaloes have Toyota with them. But the other clubs, I think, need to find a way to make noise for them to get the resources to sustain these players. Because players in Uganda, you grow up with a dream of, if you play rugby, you think about playing for Heathens or Cobs and lately Pirates.
Pirates, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like every Tanzanian. They say that in Tanzania, everyone supports Simba Yanga, regardless. And everyone in South Africa supports Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates. And everyone in Egypt supports Al Ahly, and then the disgruntled ones go to Zamalek. Yeah. So it's going to be very difficult for you to retain your players, but for me it starts with having the resources. And the resources seem to be being funneled towards the top three, which is going to make it very difficult for other teams to compete.
Are you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Nabingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College Nabingo Road. GMS Nabingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.
So interesting times, Isma, for Ugandan sport. You've just been talking about the three on top in rugby, but now to basketball. Last season, the dictator was overthrown, so the league has just begun, and I'm just wondering, will the dictator, return to their throne or something, or are Blazers here to stay?
In most of the seasons when the dictator in basketball, and in that case the City Oilers, have won the league title, they've not won the season opener. Actually, in the 10 years, of the 10 titles the City Oilers have won, I think they've won only 2 season openers. So maybe if you want to beat them, allow them win the season opener. Because they don't win the first game of the season, then they win the final game of the season. Now this time they won the first game of the season by beating the champions. That sounds very good and very different. Namongo Blazers, City Oilers show up, and you felt they were hungrier. For them having lost last year's final 4-2, it looked like they almost played this as a Game 7. The Game 7 they never got a chance to play last season, and they did certain things that I liked. I had mentioned the other week about the players they've brought in, former MVP Landry Ndikumana. Then I mentioned Joel Banza Lukoji, who was, for me, the best player on the floor. And then also Joel Kayira. There are things I thought they did very well. They managed the ball much better. They allowed Joel Banza dictate the tempo of the game, and that allowed all the other players to enjoy the game. Fayed Bale, who has been playing as a combo guard, as a point guard and shooting guard, had an opponent to take his threes and not worry about creating for everyone, because Joel Banza was doing that for them. The other thing is that the rebounding. Landry Ndikumana really improved their rebounding, the Burundian, and he had 17 points, I think, in that game and 11 rebounds. Improved their rebounding, which is one of the areas where I felt they did not do very well. The other part that I thought the coach Andrew Tendo did in the second half, because the game had been very close, had been 4 to 5 points for most of it, until they blew it open in the third and fourth quarter and went 18 up. I also thought by returning to a zonal defense and forcing Namongo Blazers to take threes also helped City Oilers reorganize their defense, and when they were missing, then they could pick the rebound and run, and that got them in a very good situation. So I think they are going to be a better team than they were last year. Last year was the best chance to beat City Oilers. And I know one of our friends, Franklin Kaweru, who works for Kawowo, wrote a headline about Olympus has fallen, like the movie. And many people involved with City Oilers were not happy about the headline, even if the content of the story was very good. But because of our ability to judge and sometimes try not to understand, some people read the headline and that was it for them. But the story I thought was much deeper, because even in that opinion, he also mentions how this was the best chance to beat City Oilers. They did not look as convincing for the entire season as they had been in the previous years. So the dictator sent a very, very good sign, a very strong message about where they will be. I think over the next few weeks, after we get to 4-5 games, we should be able to make a judgment on what the other teams will be. But at least from what I've seen, the top 2 from last season are going to be the top 2 that everyone has to fight to beat. It has to be the Namongo Blazers or City Oilers.
Okay, let's talk about Cheptegei now, winning in Dubai. Can anyone stop him? Can anyone reach him, catch him, and overtake him in the process?
He's only made the transition from the track to the road permanently over the past few years. And he hasn't yet made, when he's made that transition, he hasn't yet delivered the results in the marathon as he would love to. However, he's doing some good stuff in the half marathon, which is a 21-kilometer race. Now, he was in Dubai running in what they call the Burj to Burj. Is that Burj to Burj? I don't know what the right pronunciation.
Burj Khalifa.
Yeah, from the Burj Khalifa to the Burj
I don't
Yeah,
know. I only know one.
the two big towers. Yeah, I need to just tell you the name of the other, because I can imagine someone in Dubai saying, "Oh, Ismail doesn't know the two towers, yet I've had a chance to visit." Yeah, because this race that he won, and he won that in 59 minutes. It's about running from the starting and finishing point. Um, is running from one bush to
Another
another.
bush.
Yeah, to another bush, yeah? Or like you'd call it a bush to bush. So he was in Dubai and he clocked 59 minutes, which is a perfect preparation for him, because the big race, like we mentioned, um, is for the London
The
Marathon, which
yeah.
is on April 26th, which will be the biggest. Yeah? The biggest is that to run, I think, in terms of in terms he hasn't run a race as big as that. So it's from the Burj Al Khalifa to the Burj Al Jumeirah. I think that's the name. Yeah, because these countries, when you they have all these skyscrapers, and sometimes you're lost in the moment. So that's where Joshua Cheptegei was. I was also looking at the figures, because as a pro, the money is as important as the rest, because he was being paid $38,000, rather 38 million shillings, which is $10,000 for winning. And then, of course, there's an appearance fee. A run of his stature does not do this thing by invitation. You don't invite him and he just shows up. It's an appearance fee that is not normally mentioned, because you want to offend the other runners. You must be able to say, Mebel, I'm inviting you for 1,000, and then you call the other and tell you, I'll give you 500, and all of you have to show up. So very good preparation, a very good start to the year, because towards the end of the year he was winning in India, he won in Kolkata, and now he's won this one. So he'll arrive in London, however good an athlete you are, however good a person you are, there is nothing as important as confidence. He's going to arrive in London feeling very confident, even if I've mentioned on this show that I do not think right now that he has the tools to win the London Marathon. It doesn't hurt if he goes there feeling like he can win it.
Can win it. Yeah. Okay. I want to read this. This is now, we're moving on to the T20 World Cup cricket, which is happening in India and Sri Lanka. What's the other country?
India and Sri Lanka.
Yeah. So after multilateral discussions, as well as the request of friendly countries, the government of Pakistan hereby directs the Pakistan national cricket team to take the field on February 15th, 2026 for its match against India. They said this on X, on their official handle. Moreover, the government handle
of Pakistan.
This decision has been taken with the aim of protecting the spirit of cricket to support the continuity of this global sport in all participating nations. The U-turn came after a frantic weekend of negotiations to end Pakistan's boycott of the match, with the ICC and Bangladesh coming to their rescue, as well as Sri Lanka. So matches between arch rivals India and Pakistan are so lucrative that they actually affect the revenue of ICC. I didn't know that. But anyway, of course, it is worth millions of dollars in sponsorship, television, and advertising revenue.
And TV rights.
All this drama, you'll obviously break it down for us with your second take. But I want to ask, who is supporting, who has Bangladesh's back in all this?
This is the point where you have to press subscribe, because I bet there is no one who can explain this as well as I'm going to.
Hallelujah.
This is the point where you press that button. Now, there are rivalries in the world, and one of those that is close to my heart and I see every day is taxis versus border borders. If you allow them to get involved in a war, I think there will be a bloodbath in Kampala. Where the border parks is where the taxi will come and park and tell them to leave. In politics, there are rivalries. We can mention many. Israel versus Palestine, Iran versus Israel, and so many others, countries that do not see eye to eye. And then the one we mentioned on the show previously, Morocco versus Algeria. Now, there's a rivalry in life and in sport But if you want to compare all those, there is nothing
That
like
compares.
India, Pakistan. And that translates into what is the national sport for these countries. And there were times when the rivalry could take a backseat
It's like
for
a
sport.
religion
Yeah.
in India.
For there's a time when the rivalries could take a backseat, and that's a political rivalries. Until 2009, and I request you to go and watch Hotel Mumbai. Yeah, you need to watch Hotel Mumbai, because then you can relate with this generation. Then you'll be able to relate with the story very well. The England national team was visiting India and playing in a series. Then a hotel not far from where India was staying in 2000, where England was staying, the visitors, was attacked by a terrorist group that is supposedly based in Pakistan. So after that, the government of India decided to cut ties with Pakistan. And this on the backdrop. Remember, there is a part called Kashmir.
Yeah, that
Part
they've
of
been
it is
fighting
they've been
for.
fighting. Part of it is in India. Part of it is in Pakistan.
Pakistan.
And over the years, until 2009, the fighting on the India-Pakistan border was sporadic, was always spurred by something, then it would stop. But after that, India decided to cut all ties, including cricket ties, with Pakistan. And that's how we get to this point. So we come into this World Cup. That's why I want to bring in Bangladesh. And I mentioned the story that Bangladesh have a player, Mustafizur Rahman, a fast bowler, who was playing in India. Then the Board for Control of Cricket in India, which is a BCCI, which is the equivalent of a FUFA or Uganda Cricket Association here, asked his team to release him for security reasons to go back to Bangladesh. So the Bangladesh Cricket Board are offended and say, if this player cannot play, we request the International Cricket Council to move our games that were going to be played in India for them to be played in Sri Lanka. The ICC said no and throw Bangladesh out of the World Cup.
I know.
Yeah. When they throw them out of the World Cup, Pakistan, now you say who has Bangladesh is back? Pakistan do.
Well, but
So-
they have gone
So
back.
Pakistan decide
They are not-
that they won't be playing the game against India, which is supposed to be happening in Colombo on Sunday, February 15th, and so will not show up for the game in solidarity with
With
with Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So in the end, Bangladesh actually asked Pakistan to play the game in the spirit of cricket, and that message through the Pakistan Cricket Board is sent to government, and government make a resolution that they have allowed the Pakistani team to go and play India in Colombo on that Sunday afternoon. And you already know what I'll be doing that Sunday afternoon. I'll be watching that game ordinarily. So that's the genesis of the entire thing. However, while Bangladesh have refused to play in the World Cup and were replaced by Scotland, who actually opened their account by smacking Italy, the World Cup debutants, is that the ICC has found themselves between tomato and tomato. Yeah, they cannot sanction Bangladesh because then it sets a dangerous precedent. So they've decided Bangladesh will not be punished for refusing to play and deciding to stay home. So they've tried to manage it in a gentleman way and hopes that Pakistan are going to play, because had they chosen not to play, the consequences in terms of, because what would happen, one of the things that I knew that was going to happen, there's going to be civil suits in court, because there are television companies that have paid money to the ICC to show the Cricket World Cup just because
India,
Pakistan and India will be playing in the group stages in the same group. So if that company has paid the ICC money and do not get the game, they end up in court. So Pakistan has saved cricket a lot of chaos by just deciding to walk out on February 15th.
You know, it's amazing. But I just wanted to ask very quickly, that gentleman whom you said...
Someone wants to take you for dinner.
No.
They can wait.
It's an alarm.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be ending.
Okay, yeah.
But that gentleman who was supposed to go back to Bangladesh,
Mustafizur Rahman.
yes, why did they get so offended by that? If it was for his own security?
The manner in which cricket is played in terms of franchise. You're signed for a season or two and then you can change clubs. They barely have contracts of players who stay very long. There is a few of them, like Virat Kohli, who has played in the IPL, the Indian Premier League, the most lucrative league in the world, and has played for one team. That's the Royal Challengers Bangalore, but they keep on changing. Bangladesh are not convinced that the reason why their player was sent home is for security. That's part of, for me, that's entire reading. Because other players are there and they are secure. Why not theirs? Yeah, so that's where they got into that kind of chaos.
Okay, unfortunately, we have got to end it here. But why, for this segment of why we should matter, I thought I could just ask you, why should we matter? Why should we be concerned about the Super Bowl, which ended? Donald Trump wasn't too happy. I don't know, was it revenge for the Seahawks?
Actually, many years I've watched the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But just because I live in a sporting community. No, I live in a sporting community and I'm going to have friends who are watching and then I'll join in. This time I did not watch. So I watched the highlights later on and I was just concentrating on the Seattle Seahawks winning. Then, thereafter, there's this comment from Donald Trump. And that went into overtime. It actually overtook the entire call. First of all, Trump goes to his forum, Truth Social, and says that the Super Bowl was anti-American because they brought a Puerto Rican artist in, Bad Bunny.
I'd never heard of him, by the way.
Me too. I was afraid of saying that. I was afraid of saying that.
Generation.
So, Bad Bunny has previously been critical of Donald Trump and the ICE. That's immigration and customs enforcement, who have been shooting people, killed a few, and then arrested very many and sent them back home. So he's been critical because he's Latino. So then, of the people he invites to the stage, they aren't really American artists. He has invited Lady Gaga and a few others, and all of them who are known to be anti-Trump. So Trump goes, when he eventually went to Truth Social, then I'm forced to watch the halftime show because I don't watch the highlights of the actual game because the Seattle Seahawks ran out with the championship against the New England Patriots. It wasn't a contest on the pitch. So there's all this discussion on ESPN about how good they were defensively, how a Briton, because they have a British coach, the first Briton, the first non-American coach to win the Super Bowl and all. Then Trump takes it in another direction. But if Trump was the catch, then there is the little man, Lewis Hamilton, 7-time Formula One world champion. And then he shows up with Kim Kardashian. I'm thinking, whoo! Yeah, love is in the air. Because I'd seen the stories about them dating and all. But I'd not really been skewed because sometimes I prefer to ignore the private or the other lives of these sports because I love them for the excellence they do when they're in the car, when they kick a ball, all these other things. It's only David Beckham who has been forced into my life that I know his children, his wife, and that this other life of theirs, I do not really care. Then there's Lewis Hamilton and Kim Kardashian. Maybe finally, there is going to be an American team in Formula One, Cadillac. They launched their car by showing it at the Super Bowl or during the halftime show for over 7 million pounds. That's what Cadillac paid. This car is manufactured by General Motors. General Motors is the biggest car manufacturing company in America. So they decided to launch their car there. And then there's going to be a debate about that is one we'll get in at some point. But Formula One cars are supposed to appear the same on either side. Yeah. Now, Cadillac have launched a car that is going to be a bit controversial. They're racing for the first time. Now, on one side, the car is a bit silver gray, and the other is a bit dirty white. Yeah. So it doesn't look exactly similar. Now, Formula One have had to make a ruling because it's been done before. I think there's a team that tried it back in 1999. The same thing. And eventually Formula One to give a ruling about how the sponsorships, the markings have to be the same and not necessarily the color. And teams are going to contest that. Yeah. They're going to try to bully Cadillac and try to ensure that they change their car. So the storyline besides the Seattle Seahawks for me was very interesting. So it took me a bit of time to get into understanding what else happened at the Super Bowl besides the Seahawks winning.
Okay, but there were some interesting stories. I was reading about Derek Hall and then Sam Donald, who had been thrown around various clubs and then eventually got picked up and did an amazing job on the day.
To win the Super Bowl.
Isma, always a pleasure to host you on your show, Second Take with IDK. We are here at Molecule Restaurant in Kololo. This weekend is Valentine's. They already have you covered. You know, it's red everywhere. Love is in the air. And do continue to show us love online. Like, subscribe, and share the videos. Till next time, goodbye.
Are you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Nabingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College Nabingo Road. GMS Nabingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.